There are words I carried for too long. They stayed inside me, quiet, heavy. I thought they would wait. They didn't. I'm 80 years old, and I regret the words I never spoke. I used to believe staying quiet kept things calm, that if I didn't say what I felt, no one would get hurt. I told myself it was better that way, kinder, safer. I see now how wrong that was. I remember my husband sitting across from me at the dining table, the same table I still use. He was reading the paper. I was folding laundry. We were close, but not together. I wanted to tell him I felt lonely, not alone, lonely. The word felt too big, so I stayed quiet. I asked him if he wanted tea instead. That moment passed. So did many like it. At the time, I didn't feel regret. I felt practical. I felt mature. I didn't know I was teaching myself not to speak. If you're watching this in your 30s or 40s, I want you to hear this gently. Silence feels small in the moment, but it grows. I remember one night clearly. He came home late, tired, quiet. I wanted to tell him I was scared of growing old, that I was afraid we were drifting, that I needed him to see me. I said nothing. I told myself there would be another night. There wasn't. Years later, after he was gone, I understood the lesson. It came slowly, not as pain, as truth. Words don't lose power because you wait. They lose meaning. The warning is simple. If you don't speak when your heart is open, it learns to close. Not all at once. Slowly. Still, I want to say this softly. You still have time, not to say everything, just to say something honest. That's why I'm telling you this now, because I believed waiting was harmless. It wasn't. I sit alone now often. I replay those moments. They don't shout at me, they whisper. If I had known how quiet regret would be, I might have spoken. Like it was holding its breath. His shoes stayed by the door. His sweater stayed on the chair. His sweater stayed on the chair. I didn't move them. I didn't know how. People told me time would help. They spoke softly. They meant well. Time didn't help right away. It only gave me space to remember. I remember one afternoon sitting in the living room alone. The light came through the window the way it always had. Dust floating. Quiet everywhere. I started talking out loud. Not to anyone. Just into the room. I said all the things I never said to him. That I felt invisible sometimes. That I needed reassurance. That I wanted to feel chosen even after all those years. The words sounded simple. Almost harmless. That's when it hit me. They always were. The lesson came slowly, like most real lessons do. Words are not dangerous. Holding them is, I thought I was being patient, understanding, easy to live with. What I was really doing was erasing myself a little at a time. If you're watching this in your 30s or 40s, please listen carefully. Pay attention to how often you shrink to keep things smooth. How often you swallow feelings because you don't want to disturb the day. I did that for decades. I remember my daughter once asking me if I was happy. We were standing in the kitchen. She was young then. I laughed softly and said, "Of course." She looked at me for a second longer than needed. Then she nodded. I should have told her the truth. That I was grateful but tired, loved but lonely. I didn't. The warning is quiet. When you don't speak, people learn a version of you that isn't whole. Later, when my daughter was grown, she told me she never knew when I needed help. She said I always seemed fine. That broke something open in me. I had taught her that silence was strength. It isn't. Strength is letting yourself be known. I still struggle with this. Old habits don't disappear just because you see them clearly. But now, when something sits heavy in my chest, I try to give it a voice. Even if it shakes, even if it's small, you still have time to do that. I want you to believe me. Not to fix everything, just to be honest once. Once is enough to start. I sit by the window most evenings now. I think about all the conversations that almost happened. They don't feel dramatic. They feel unfinished, just quietly. I remember a morning near the end of my husband's life. He was sitting in his chair by the window. The light was soft. He looked tired. I stood in the doorway and watched him. I wanted to tell him I was afraid of losing him, afraid of being alone, afraid that I hadn't been fully seen. The words were there, clear, ready. I didn't say them. I told myself he already knew. I told myself it wasn't the right moment. I told myself I would say it later. Later never came. That memory comes back often now. Not as pain, as clarity. The lesson was slow but certain. People don't hear what you don't say. Even if they love you, even if they are close, love does not read minds. It listens. If you're watching this in your 30s or 40s, I want you to pause with that. Think about the things you assume others understand about you, the feelings you expect them to just know. I expected that too. I remember after the funeral, a friend said to me, "You were always so strong." I nodded, but inside I felt something sink. Strength had cost me honesty, and honesty was what I needed most. That is the warning I carry now. When you hide your feelings for too long, people stop looking for them. Not because they don't care, because you taught them not to ask. I live alone now. The days are slower, quieter. In that quiet, I practice saying things out loud. Small truths. I miss you. That hurt. I need help today. They don't feel dramatic. They feel real. Sometimes I say them to my daughter, sometimes to a friend, sometimes just into the room. Each time it feels lighter, not because the past changed, but because I finally did. You still have time to do that, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if your voice shakes. I don't want you to wait until the room is quiet like mine, until the person you need to hear you is gone. I waited, and now I understand. Words don't just express feelings, they protect them. If you're listening, that's why I'm telling you this now. Not to push you, not to scare you, just to be honest. Say the words while they still have somewhere to land. You still have time. This is where I stop speaking for now. I didn't share this to explain my life or to fix anything. I shared it because these words stayed with me too long. I'm 80 years old now. I understand how quiet regret really is. It doesn't shout. It just sits beside you when the room is empty. I think about the words I never spoke. They don't feel dramatic anymore. They feel small, manageable. And that's what hurts most. If you're watching this and someone comes to mind, stay with that feeling for a moment. You don't have to rush. You don't have to make a speech. Just don't carry it forever like I did. Some words need to be heard, not perfectly, just honestly. I waited, and now I know what waiting costs. That's all I wanted to say.